Mm. Happy New Year, everybody. Hello, and thank you for joining us for today's virtual education program at Cancer Support Community South Bay. I'm Rebecca, the program manager, and I welcome you to this workshop titled When Chicken Soup is Not Enough, Getting What You Need from Caregivers with Aimee Sax. Before we begin, if this is your first time joining us, CSC South Bay's mission is to ensure that all people impacted by cancer are empowered by knowledge, strengthened by action, and sustained by community so that no one faces cancer alone. We serve the South Bay, Long Beach, and Orange County area all at no cost. Our program includes support groups, networking groups, healthy lifestyle classes, social activities, and educational programs like this workshop. Educational programs are open to all. If you'd like to hear more about our services or join a community, please visit our website at cscsouthbay.org. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our workshop speaker. Aimee Sax, MSW, is the California Support Program Manager and a social worker at Sharsheret, where she provides free, confidential, and personalized support to women and families facing breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and the genetic predispositions towards them. She got an MSW at UCLA Luskin School of Public Affairs. She loves to connect with others, and whether they're discussing cancer, advocacy, parenting, or shows on Bravo. Thank you, Aimee, so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm just going to share my screen so you can see my slides. Let's see. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Rebecca, for having me and Sharsheret today. Happy New Year to everybody. And let's just go ahead and get started. So, if you haven't heard of Sharsheret, we are a national nonprofit that serves people facing breast and ovarian cancer and also the genetic predispositions towards those cancers. We have a team of social workers and a genetic counselor, and then we have an educational and outreach team that really educates the healthcare community, the Jewish community, and basically anybody who will have us. We'll speak at a workout studio or anything like that. And we are a Jewish organization. I'm very proud to be a Jewish organization. We are an underserved, high-risk community in terms of these genetic predispositions. But we are absolutely here for everyone, regardless of background. So if you leave with one thing today, I hope you know that you can send anybody to Sharsheret and anybody can call us. We're here for everybody. Everything that we do is confidential, free, and completely personalized to each person who calls us. We have lots of different types of support that we offer. We have a peer support network. We send packages with, gifts, whether it's makeups and lotions, everything paraben and phthalate free, or our busy box, which comes stocked with toys based on each child's ages and interests for people who have children as they're going through treatment and surgery. It has parenting resources and a storybook that explains cancer on a child's level, or our survivorship kit, which is completely personalized based on your specific needs. We also provide some financial support. It's kind of specific to different issues, whether it's things that insurance doesn't cover, like scalp cooling or a custom human hair wig or nipple and areola tattooing or eyebrow tattooing. And people do have to qualify, but you can just reach out to us to find out if you do. Everything that we provide, is really geared towards, which stage someone has been diagnosed with. And then also everything that we provide is also available to people who haven't gotten a cancer diagnosis, but maybe just a genetic predisposition towards it. And to that end, we also have a lot of genetic support. If somebody is just considering getting genetic testing, even they can call and connect with our genetic counselor. We do host webinars like this one today, and tomorrow we're having one on nutrition. Later this month, we're having one on genetics. We have a weekly yoga series that's about to wrap up. Everything's recorded on our website, so we have a nice library of resources there, so that's a great resource to have. But let's dive into today's topic. So, Sharsheret was really founded because of the social isolation that happens with cancer. Our founder wanted to connect with someone who could understand the specific issues she was going through. She had young children, she was working, and so she got connected with a friend of a friend who could relate. And so we know both, anecdotally and studies show that, connecting with others can be really life changing, and so to have cancer and add on a pandemic and, all of that, it makes it really difficult. And we know that the stress that comes from cancer and from the isolation that comes with it can actually have negative impacts on people's health, disease progression, and efficacy of treatment, and that seeking social support can actually be found to help that. So it's not even getting the social support, right? Just seeking it is enough to help those impacts lessen. But once you seek the social support, once you do connect with community about your cancer, that can sometimes be a double-edged sword, right? Once it's out there, you can't get it back in the box, right? So, knowing that sometimes that can be overwhelming. There are moments when you're not thinking about cancer, and then somebody says, "Oh, how are you doing?" Right? And you're like, "Oh, this is the cancer thing. I wasn't thinking about that, and now I am, and they want me to go through the whole sob story, and I'm not in that headspace right now. So it's really important to remember you call the shots. You get to decide when that's on the table and with whom, right? So you don't have to have the same conversations with everyone who knows. You get to decide what you share and when and with who. So I like to teach people about the cancer-free zone. Maybe somebody says, "Oh, how are you doing?" You can say, "Oh, you know what? Thank you so much for asking, but right now I'm trying to have a cancer-free afternoon. I really appreciate it." And if they challenge that, that tells you everything you need to know about them, right? And so usually they won't challenge that. Usually they'll say, "Oh, absolutely, what shows are you watching?" Or maybe you ask them that question, and just try to get past that moment if you're not looking to have it. Also sometimes, once it's out there, other people might share with other people who you didn't know knew, right? And so you can ask people, "This is who I'm sharing it with right now. Please, don't share with other people." You get to define your community. You get to decide. A lot of people will say, "Let me know if there's anything you need," right? And that's really well-meaning, but really annoying too, because it puts the onus on you to ask for help, right? And this is really hard for everyone, and certainly I think that everybody, has their challenges, but I think women especially really have a hard time with this because we're used to doing things for other people, right? We really like to take care of other people a lot of the time. So I actually recommend practicing, and, maybe it's in front of your mirror, maybe it's when you're lying in bed, or maybe it's when you're in the shower, when you have a moment alone, imagining, what that would feel like, and maybe even going through it, and saying the words of how you might actually ask these questions, and to try to reframe the idea of asking for help. I think a lot of people feel that it makes them weak, or is about admitting weakness. And I think it can really be a strength, because it is so hard for people. So you have to be strong in order to do it. And to remind yourself how good it feels to help other people. You can give that gift to your friends and loved ones, right? To be there for you when you're used to being there for them. In Judaism, we call it a mitzvah, right? A good deed, to let someone help you, and to also understand that not everybody's going to offer, right? And I speak to women and families and people all the time who tell me about their best friend or someone in their family, or someone in their close circle who they feel has let them down, right, and not shown up in the way that they expected. You might not know why they're not offering to help. Or maybe they've had an experience with cancer either themselves or a loved one, and it might be really triggering for them. And, or maybe they just don't know how, right? And so remembering that it's still okay to ask people like that for help, because maybe they just don't know how to offer and they don't know what kind of help you want and they don't want to belittle you, right? They think you might think it's a weakness, and so they're trying to be really careful, and they might not know the right way to do it. So it is always okay to ask. A lot of people don't offer because they are so worried about saying the wrong thing, right? So I already mentioned this. Let me know if you need anything. It really puts the onus on you, and so you might hear it a lot. And I challenge you to take people at their word. If they're saying that, maybe they really mean it and they just don't know a better way to handle that. They don't know how to offer specifics. And so try, even though it is annoying, try not to be annoyed by that and try to actually take people up on their offer. And to understand that this fear of saying the wrong thing can so often turn to silence, right? So what I was saying about, people letting them down, a lot of times I hear people saying, that they're just going to write somebody off because of that. And well, I used to think that person was my best friend, but I guess they're not, right? I would say, listen, if it's actually a toxic relationship and you should cut them off, then do it. But sometimes it's about taking them from like the top shelf to a lower shelf, right? And maybe they're not a top shelf friend anymore, but that doesn't mean they deserve to be thrown in the trash, right? And maybe it is that situation of the fear turning to silence, and you can have that conversation with them. And, maybe it's like a heart to heart of, hey, I expected this and I was disappointed. Or maybe it's just, hey, do you want to go get lunch? And you don't talk about the disappointment and you just get that support that you wanted. A lot of friends and loved ones, will always try to look at the bright side, right? They're like that peppy coach, which you don't want. You want somebody sometimes to just let you share your fears without saying, yeah, but you're going to be okay, or it could be worse, or, different things like that. And it's okay to say to people when they're doing that, listen, I really appreciate what you're trying to say, but right now I'm just feeling really crummy and I just want a friend to sit next to me while I feel crummy. I don't want to look on the bright side right now. I just need to feel these feelings. And most people who you're open enough with to say that to are going to be okay with that. It's just uncomfortable because our society doesn't teach people how to do that, right? Our society doesn't teach people how to sit in that uncomfortable feeling. And it's something that I really, really wish we do, which is why I do these presentations. I feel really honored to be able to speak about this because I think it's just so important. Another thing a lot of people do, maybe the worst thing, in this saying the wrong thing camp, is sharing horror stories. I have heard so many stories of, oh, well, it could be worse. I know so-and-so who had stage 4 and you only have stage 3. So it's really not that bad, or, oh, I know somebody who had the surgery you're about to have and they had every complication in the book. And it's like, why would you share that with me? I'm trying to gear up for this surgery or this treatment or, this experience. And I don't want to think about all the ways that it could go wrong because trust me, I already am, right? So it is okay in those moments to say, I get why you're saying that, but I just got to stop you because I'm going to be up at night thinking about this. So I just don't want to be, have another horror story to think of. But another technique is this picture on the screen, the bobblehead technique. And I love this technique, excuse me. Where if somebody's sharing something, either a horror story or maybe unsolicited advice, like, oh, I know somebody who did that and they did this treatment, like, are you going to do that? You can just kind of be a bobblehead. Just imagine you're a bobblehead and you say, oh, thank you so much. I'll let my doctor know, right? Because when you say, no, I'm not doing that, or no, that doesn't have anything to do with my experience. then that invites more conversation, right? And then maybe they'll try to convince you. And instead, what you can do is just say, oh, thank you so much. I'll take that into consideration. Or thank you so much. I'll share that with my doctor. And you just imagine your bobblehead. And when you say yes, it shuts people down a lot faster than the argument that can ensue. I'm so sorry. I'm gonna have a water break. Okay. So that's another nice little technique that can help. So we have a closed private Facebook group specifically for people who have gone through cancer, and we loved this post that somebody shared of, what's the stupidest thing that someone has said to you about cancer. I'll go first. Is that your real hair? Right? And you can see on here a lot of the comments that people have gotten. So this is just some examples of what I was talking about, saying the wrong thing. So hopefully this gives you a chuckle and a realization that nobody's alone in this. Everybody's hearing these not great things once you let the cat out of the bag. So, there are some different ways that I do recommend to, kind of get more useful help. Because there are so many times when people say, oh, how can I help? Please let me know if there's anything I can do, right? And so I would actually open a note in your phone, or if you're a notebook person, a page in your notebook where you're constantly adding to create a running list of what are the things that you need, right? I always have a Target list on my phone of things I need to get at Target. I have a grocery list of things I need to get at the grocery that I'm constantly adding to. If somebody says, hey, is there anything I can do? And I realize, oh, I am running low on toilet paper, or paper towel or whatever it is, oh my gosh, you know what? If you're going to Target or next time you go to the grocery store, if you could pick me up blank, that would be such a huge help. A lot of people are so excited to do something like that. And they're probably already going to Target or the grocery or wherever sometime in the next week or so. So, that is an easy, tangible thing, that can help. If you have children and they have a relationship with this person who's asking, maybe say, oh my gosh, you know what? Sally's been asking to go to the park or to the movies, or, I know they would just love to have an ice cream date with you to either talk about it or not talk about it, right? And just have that sense of normalcy. And that would give me a couple hours, to just rest or to feel crummy without eyes on me, and feeling like I need to be strong. And, or maybe it's a spouse or a loved one, that you're like, you know what, I think so-and-so is having a hard time with this. And it would just be so nice if you could reach out to them. It doesn't only have to be the things for you. Of course, it's great to have, if you want somebody, to give you a ride to treatment, you could have a list of all your upcoming appointments, different things like that. Like, have a list that's easy. There are certain people who you would love for them to drop off a meal, and then there are certain people who you've tasted their cooking before and you don't want them to drop off a meal, right? So, having those lists can really help you have options that are right for each person, because all the people in your support system are not capable of doing the same things for you, both emotionally and physically, right? So, but sometimes all you really need is just a distraction, right? Or just a conversation about something that isn't cancer, and so being able to think about your friends and loved ones in, kind of like I was saying before, some people are on the top shelf, and some people are on a lower shelf, but also maybe some people are capable of this and some people are capable of that. And just kind of remembering, to keep those separate and understanding, those differences. Having a list can sometimes help when you're thinking about what is this person actually capable of doing for me. There's also a lot of different ways to keep people informed, right? So sometimes you'll want to actually designate a point person. I know people say, I have gotten so many texts and emails and calls and voicemails, I can't return every single one. And I don't want to send a mass email because that seems impersonal and maybe rude, which, by the way, it's never rude. You need to do whatever you need to do to protect your time and energy. But to think of having a point person, whether it's a spouse or a best friend, so that when people ask you for an update, you can say, oh, hey, spouse or best friend, can you reach back out to that person? Or you can say to that person, can you ask, my point person? They know what they can share, because I'm really exhausted today or something like that. Also, there are websites where you can kind of have a blog or, a way to share what you're comfortable sharing. And that can be enabled so that you can add updates, but also your point person can add updates when you're not feeling, up to it. And that can be really nice because then you can just direct everybody to that link, right? And you don't have to answer every question. You can just direct them to that. And that's a great way to keep people informed. And some of those websites have the ability to have a meal train aspect or Men Together has a registry. So, just like a wedding registry or a baby registry, they have a cancer registry, which has enabled a lot of items that are great for either during treatment or surgery or, recovery. And it's all there together. And so you can have your own personal blog that has a link to your registry as well. Certainly, I think Caring Bridge has a meal train aspect. There's also like mealtrain.com. And you can designate on there what are your dietary restrictions, what are your preferences, and which days would you like things dropped off, and at what time would you like things dropped off. Some people eat early, some people eat late, some people don't want their doorbell ringing, at all hours. So that's a really nice way to just put it out there of, here's an easy way, for people to help. And, of course, when they make a home cooked meal, that's lovely, but they can also give you, like, most of those websites are enabled for a DoorDash gift certificate or things like that. And then just to remember that we know that your needs don't end when treatment ends, but a lot of times our loved ones assume that, and to not think the worst of them for assuming that, if they haven't been through it, they don't know. And so, kind of reminding them, like, I'm having a hard time. This is the anniversary of something, or this is the first time I've done blank since my cancer diagnosis, or, just making sure that it's still on their radar, that they know you're still dealing with this, because it can be something that they don't always realize, is still very much on the forefront of your mind. So I already talked a little bit about this, but, remembering that, not everyone is going to be able to help with everything. I always think back to when I was picking my bridesmaids for my wedding, many years ago. I had, a couple of bridesmaids who were really great for when I was like in an emotional tizzy, right? And they could really talk to me about my mother-in-law or my parents or, my fight with my, now husband. And just ground me in that way. But then I had this one bridesmaid who I chose because I knew she wasn't capable of doing that for me, but that she would make sure that my bachelorette party was really fun. She would make me laugh right before the ceremony if I was feeling nervous. She was there for fun. And so remembering that your friends and loved ones are able to offer you different things, and while sometimes that can be frustrating because you think they're going to be capable of one thing and then they show you that maybe they're not capable of that, that try to just take people for what they are and what they can offer, and don't try to change them because you don't have the energy or the time to really try to do that. Sometimes you can have that conversation, with a real close loved one of, hey, this is what I need from you, not what you're offering, but what I think you're capable of. And sometimes that is really possible to change people and to instruct them in the type of care and love that you need and that you deserve. But it's not always easy. And so, I really challenge you to protect yourself and your energy and your time by just letting people be able to help you in the way that they're able to help you. So, and thinking of them in these different camps, right? So emotional help, talking about your feelings, practical help, giving you a ride or dropping off, toilet paper, paper towel, or groceries, or a meal, distractions and fun, right? And being able to say, hey, I don't really want to talk about cancer right now, but if you could send me a funny, or cute pictures of dogs, right? Like that's my thing. When I'm having a hard day, I have a couple of friends who I'm like, send me some dogs, or send me, like, I love interspecies relationships, right? When you see like a dog hanging out with a bird, or like whatever it is, I don't know. But I have a friend who always sends me those because she knows I like them, and she does too. So something like that. And then, different friends are sometimes good at research. Definitely Sharsheret can be that for you. I have already done the research, so you don't have to. So definitely call Sharsheret and we can help, give you the resources that you need. I hope that, hearing me talk about this has made you think of, your support system in slightly different ways. And, how can you kind of, utilize these different techniques that I've mentioned, or different ways to reframe or to think about your support system, to activate your support system in a new way, to energize your support system, or, even if it's just one person in your support system, that you want to kind of activate and get them to help in a different or new way. And also please reach out to Sharsheret and connect with me. I'm here for everybody. While we do focus on breast and ovarian cancer, if there's a different diagnosis that you have, doesn't mean I'm going to hang up the phone when you share that. I'm still here for you. And I'd love to hear if anybody has any questions.
Thank you so much, Amy. If anyone has any questions, feel free to type it into the chat or unmute yourself, and that'll just indicate to me that you have a question to ask. Um, and Amy did just share her email into the chat. So if you ever want to reach out to her for any advice or research or resources, please feel free to do so.
I know sometimes it's hard to ask in a forum like this, so please feel free to email me, so we can talk through your specific issues, and whether it's a sibling or a spouse or a friend, if you're having trouble with somebody in your support system and you want to talk through it, we're certainly here for that.
Absolutely. Amy, just in case, I'm just going to stop the recording just in case anyone wants to ask questions. So I want to say thank you just for the recording.